I'd like to call to order the December 7th Ways and Means meeting. Kelly, could you call the roll?
Alderwoman Sims, absent. Alderwoman Tice.
Here.
Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderwoman Harder.
Here.
3 of 4 members are present, which represents a quorum.
Next on the agenda is approval or amendment of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda? And as is, report of committee chair and alderman. Alderman Gould?
No report.
I don't have a report. And
No report from me.
Okay, great. Next is the city administrator's report. Bola, you have something about the proposed, or maybe Kelly's doing this, the proposed meeting dates?
The meeting dates. That's okay. What we did was we moved forward with meeting dates for 2024. I just posted them in board docs for you. I just wanted to make sure that you were okay with those dates. There is the July 9th date. Normally, it would fall on July 4th. Obviously, nobody's going to be around, so it's the Tuesday after the holiday. And the potential proposed additional budget dates, the special meeting dates for budget time in October. So I just wanted to present that and make sure everybody was okay with the upcoming meeting dates.
That's great. The one thing I noticed is the November the 14th date is a second Thursday, so that would be Public Works. So there is a conflict with the,
Oh, okay, okay.
I have a conflict with January 4th. I'm going to be out of town for work. I don't know that that's important as long as we have a quorum with the rest of the.
Exactly. Right.
I mean,
And we'll make sure that what we put on there, you know, if it's a discussion item you want to be part of,
Yeah,
then
correct.
we'd
Yeah,
be
thank you.
sensitive to that.
Appreciate that.
yeah, I'll be gone at the May meeting, but it's the regular meeting, so yeah.
We'll keep that in mind as well.
Child
Do you know
graduates
which May
college you
meeting
go,
she's going to be going?
That's correct.
May meeting?
Which May meet, well, the
2nd?
only May
The regular
2nd.
meeting.
Okay.
A child graduating college, so that's
That's good.
That's more important than.
4 years goes by fast.
It does, it does. Next, we'll go to department reports, financial statements. Michelle, are you coming down?
I have November financial statements, which were also in your packet and also in board docs. We'll talk about just some of the highlights. I mean, overall, financially, we're in good shape. Things are well. Revenue-wise, I would say investments across the board have far exceeded where we thought they would be, or the budgeted numbers. All of that can be contributed to Brad and the active investments that you guys have inherited, and it is working. Aside from that, occupational license exceeds their budget by about $200,000, so that's a good story. Ambulance fees exceeds theirs by 30, and this is once again only towards the end of November. Let's see. And then the interest in the other funds also sort of exceeds their budget as well. So for Fund 50 and Fund 40, once again, that dynamic investment option is working and working well. Overall, for the general fund, for your revenues, currently you've exceeded the budgeted amount for the annual budget. So we still have yet to get December in and then make the audit adjustments accordingly. But that's a good story for revenues. Expenditure-wise, a lot of the categories for salaries are down just based upon some of the vacancies. Those are kind of ramping up a bit. Miscellaneous contractual expenses on page 2 for administration is high. That was probably from my search. That sort of drove most of that cost from what I understand. On page 3, the insurance cost for municipal operations, that one has increased. Internally, now we're capturing items and correcting prepaids, so items that were prepaid and now they're hitting this account. So that will even itself out once we take out the prepaids from last year and bring in the prepaids from this year. So that's running high at the moment, but it will start to even itself out. The other one to be concerned about, but really nothing we can do right now, would be fuel. So petrol products just across the accounts for all departments is running high, and we'll just continue to monitor that, but that's just the trend at the moment. Otherwise, I didn't see anything really that stuck out. I think, once again, I'm sending the financial statements monthly to the department heads, and we're having those conversations. I'm also reconciling revenue with the departments that bring in revenue to make sure that there's no material misstatements between parks or planning and development, and that we're actually all speaking the same language, since our softwares don't speak together. So, any immediate questions? There's a lot of data in here.
Yeah, I have a question, two questions actually. One regarding the revenue. There were several line items that had 40+% still of the budget still to receive. One of them that was, I think, 70, several of them that still had quite a big percentage that was yet to be received. Are we
will-
concerned about those at all? Because, I mean, in
it
December,
would-
I don't think we're going to
It
get
would
them.
depend on where they were, but if you're talking for like the ad valorem taxes or road and bridge and the financial institution tax and those types of taxes, majority of those January and February dollars gets pushed back because the collections were for December.
Okay.
So those will be part of the audit adjustment, and they're part of the moving you to modified accrual. So I'm not overly worried about those, but those will come at a later December statement once those adjustments are made.
Yeah, and then like automobile licenses are, still have 41% of their budget remaining. It's probably not
And
a
that's seasonal,
significant
yeah,
number.
like those are ones where we're just sort of gauging it, and I don't know what drives that, the purchase of automobiles, I would assume,
Yeah, I'm sure
or,
it's, you know, it's,
And we've heard that people aren't paying those, right? The temporary tags.
right. Some of that around the city, yes. And then as far as the expenditures, the only one that kind of stuck out to me a little bit was community relations and the cost of paper and all of that. That seems to be, you know, we're below target, which is good. But just from a future forecasting, if some of these costs are going to continue to rise, are we good? Are we good for next year's budget, right? We just
Are you on
passed.
page 3? Are you looking at, is it the newsletter one? Is it?
Yeah, I was looking at the analysis. So I'm not in the full report. I was looking at your the variance analysis.
Right. I would say give me about another 6 months to watch the trends on it. And now that we're fully staffed, and then sort of seeing what Michelle Boyer does with communications, and
Yeah,
then
maybe
what type
shift
of
to-
mailings and
Shift to
flyers.
digital more.
Right, right. I would say that some of these budget dollars will start to be utilized, or maybe even in a different manner, depending on what the vision is and the direction is, or the rebranding effort is.
Right.
So I would say there probably would be some adjustments, and will we meet the budget needs, or will they help make us have better budget conversations?
Right.
We'll-
Okay,
We'll wait and
great.
see how that goes.
In addition, we had special mailouts this year that we don't normally do.
That's true, yeah.
So that accounts for that expense that you saw.
Okay, great.
Alderwoman Harder, do you have any questions? So I have one. So first of all, the variance reports are great, so that's really helpful. Thank you. And I do have one question. It's a little bit maybe for Dan about the sanitation expenses being quite a bit over budget. They're 78,000 over budget.
I do know, and I did question the wages on sanitation because they were significantly over budget, to find out how they budgeted dollars. And when I inquired internally, even with Gina, she just sort of indicated, this year we used a labor model and we sort of went 1-to-1 and then mapped it all out per person. I don't believe that was utilized in that. So part of what's driving that overage in that department at the moment for sanitation in general is just that the wages weren't allocated correctly, and they will be for '24.
Right. And then the other thing that just noted in the variance report that I just thought should be said out loud is that we exhausted the 2019 COPS in the third quarter. So I was like, oh, that's sort of buried in here, but
Yes, you
maybe we
did.
should all know that that occurred.
You
So-
did.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Next is the investment report. Is Brad online? Hi, Brad. We can't hear you. No. No, it's in our side. Because the city hall's on mute? Or that's you? Is that you are on mute? How well can you hear him on yours, Kelly? Microphone, do you think we could hear him? But I'm
Could
wondering
you
if,
put your microphone so that? Why don't you do that? Okay.
he's on the phone. He's gonna, oh, can you tell him? Oh, well, jump and approve the consent agenda? Or is that not allowed? Okay, well, let's jump and, let's jump to 6. And on the consent agenda, we have 3 sets of minutes. Have you all had an opportunity to review the minutes? Any changes? Okay, seeing none, will they be approved by acclamation? Is that okay? Or we don't need to vote on that, do we? Oh, we do? Acclamation's fine, okay. Okay, and so we're back to Brad.
Yes, okay, sorry. I hope it's not on my side. My phone said that my microphone was on. Okay, thank you all for having me tonight. I always like to give you a little bit, I thought I'd give you a couple of little highlights on the market. We've had a bunch of rate hikes over the last year and a half to bring inflation down. And just the pretty fresh inflation data has recently come out. We were at 9% with a goal of hiking rates to bring us down to 2%. It came down to 3, then it went up to 3.8, and here just recently, it's back down to 3.25. So inflation is moving in the right direction, and the market kind of reads that as additional rate hikes are unlikely. And those rate hikes are what cause our mortgages to go up in car loans, in credit cards, but they also cause short-term investments to rise because they have to compete with the money market rates. So we're all seeing higher money market rates as one positive to that. Just today, the jobless numbers came out, and they were slightly better than anticipated. So that could be a seasonal thing, ramping up for the holidays. So that will be, we'll figure that out here in the next couple months. But those that are bullish on the market saw that as a huge bullish win, and we saw stock market rise. But we also saw a flight to quality where bond yields have come down a little bit. And so we have kind of a split market where there are a group of folks out there and investors and fund managers who believe that the stock market is the place to go. The others are thinking flight to quality, let's hunker down for a potential recession. So time will tell. On to City of Brentwood stuff. Hopefully in your packet, you have two documents. I think Kelly was kind enough to put those in for me. The first is a spreadsheet that you guys see every month, and it just lists out all of the accounts, primarily bond proceed accounts, and then at the very bottom there's a custody fund, that's excess general fund money that you all have invested. So we just see that number incrementally rising every month, so it's fantastic to see. So the total of all that has been earned is $2,657,943 in all accounts.
That's just great. Every time we see it, it amazes me every time.
Yeah, we're loving this market. Interest rates are still about the highest they've been since 2007. If we go to the other handout, it's got the series of blue graphs, and I've just added November's there. All this data is updated as of November 30th. So at the top there, this year in the custody account, you all have earned $583,000, and that's approximate average earnings of about $49,000 a month. So that's what brings you to the $2,657,000 total over time. So I'll turn that over to you all. If you have any questions or anything, happy to answer.
Any questions for Brad? Yeah, Alderman Gould?
Just one question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. As far as the monthly earning for November, it's 42,522. Is that, and that's the lowest we've seen since you've been tracking this year. Is there do you see that as a leveling out trend, or just where do you?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have seen reinvestment yields declining about the last 6 weeks. So that pretty much encompasses the time period that we're referring to here. So yields have declined over the last 6 weeks or so. So our reinvestments are at a little bit lower yields. In addition to that, we've got a really nice ladder where we have securities maturing almost monthly. And so we don't want to have too much money maturing too soon or at one particular time. So we've kind of been laddering that out. So unfortunately, we're in this really odd inverted yield curve. And I think I talked a little bit about this 2 months ago when we had this Ways and Means Committee meeting last. And that inverted curve is shorter term rates are higher, longer term are lower. So it's a little counterintuitive. We're reinvesting at a little bit longer term investments, kind of tacking it on to the end of the ladder. That's picking up a little bit lower yields because of that inverted curve. But I think it protects that money at very good rates for that much longer, rather than keeping it all short term for fear that the Fed lowers the Fed funds rate at some point here in the near future, and we expose a greater portion of the portfolio to reinvestment risk or interest rate risk.
Okay, great. That explains it. Thank you.
Other questions for Brad?
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you, Brad. Look forward to hearing from you next month.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay,
Take care. Thank you all. Bye.
great. Next, we have as 5C, the compensation and benefits study. So who's going to be, Bola, is this you or? Okay.
There has been direction to issue the request for proposal this year, and we have been working on finalizing the RFP. In your packet is the last RFP that was issued, and thought that it was timely before we release this to get your feedback, comments on things that should be included that currently are not, or if perhaps we have captured some of the thoughts and concerns of the board. So in the board packet, we talk about scope of service, which would include review the city's existing compensation plan and benefits plan. There has been discussion to do a comprehensive study that would include the benefits. Also, there has been discussion about moving the non-uniform employees that are currently at the 75th percentile to the 95th percentile. So the wording for that would be in here. The uniform, which is police and fire, who are currently at the 95th percentile, would stay at the 95th percentile. And then to conduct a comprehensive survey of external regional labor market impacting the job market for all positions. So this would be done for all positions, and look at, so this is where we would need your input. Include public sector, private sector, jobs with the same essential duties and functions, and also, I think when the city started doing the compensation study in 2014, there was a process by which the city, jointly with the consultant, identified the communities that would be designated as the comparator organizations. And so there are a total of 14. So do you want to revisit that? Do you want to expand that? What would you like to do with that? So that's to start off this discussion.
Thoughts, comments? Me to start? Okay. And I know Alderman Plufka's here, so after the committee comments, then I would certainly welcome you to have comments. So I have several questions. These are smaller ones, but on the compensation analysis, that would study like how much the city pays for insurance, the days off and the laddering of them, all that. I think one thing I'd like to add to looking at this that I don't think we did the last time is comparing retirement benefits and what the retirement level is for our non-uniform, and then just sort of in, big picture pension fund.
For all employees,
for all
police and fire,
police and
just
fire
non-uniform.
and
Okay.
non-uniform, yeah. And then I did notice a phrase in here, it is the desire of the city to move non-uniform employees to the 95th percentile. I mean, the mayor said that, and like I personally would like to do that, but I don't think we voted on that. So I think that I don't know how that language needs to be phrased, but the city is exploring moving or something.
So
But
well, I thought maybe desire and exploring interchangeably.
yeah. Okay, but I just want to.
I mean, so when the information comes back, that doesn't mean you have to accept it.
Right, that's okay.
But they
so
have to go out and capture that information and bring it back to you.
Right.
Right, okay.
Oh, please.
So, I mean, I guess as long as they'll run numbers with the current philosophy, and then also look at what if
What it is to move it.
non-uniform went to 95th, what does
Right.
that do, right?
Exactly.
So we're not just getting back 95th and then, okay, well, what is, right?
So you want them to do both?
I would think we would want to run the.
Run it at the
Compare
75th, and then run it to move it to the
Yeah, because we haven't voted on whether or
75th?
not to go to 95th.
Okay.
So I think we need to have the 75th and the 95th
Right.
numbers. So I just want to make sure that was.
That's good clarification.
Yeah. And then the other thing I really like the idea of expanding the comparators. Like I'll use trash for example. I mean there aren't very many. There are just two other municipalities that do trash. So they should be compared to other trash. I mean they're
The private sector.
the private sector. So I do like the fact that some of these jobs are being compared to the private sector. I think for other jobs, it's kind of hard because there are also a lot of benefits that come from working for municipality that are different. So
Right.
we need to make sure we're
So
comparing.
call out sanitation separately.
Or, I mean, I just picked them because that was an
Okay.
easy example. So
have
I
the-
know I'm sure
have
there are
the
other
cons-
ones.
Well, but then that's the language that it says, let me find it. Conduct a comprehensive survey of external regional labor markets impacting the job market for all positions in the
Then that's
city.
perfect, then you don't
And
need
this
to
shall
add.
include public sector, private sector with the same essential duties and jobs. So it's inclusive of everything.
Right, I like that. So then the question is how, there's a timeline in the administrative content, and there's several things missing from those, like coming back to our, like Ways and Means and the board to approve who's selected. But there are also things that I think the board probably would like to have input before it's finished, like who the comparators are, like, if we're gonna have a broad discussion of comparators, I would think it's staff and board who should have input with
right.
that. So, I think these tasks are missing some input from the board.
So within the RFP, we, in a different area other than in the timeline, otherwise it becomes very lengthy. All the different meetings, because we can't ballpark that this committee, including the board, will have 5 meetings. So what the consultant will provide is the cost per meeting.
Okay, that's
So
perfect.
then we would know that it cost X dollars if you want 6 meetings or however many. So I don't know that that necessarily needs to be on a timeline schedule.
Okay, well, even the finalists, there's no approval by the board of the finalists.
So there are meetings embedded
In there.
into this.
Okay,
Right.
perfect. Then the next is, I'd really like us to be able to figure out a way that the compensation plan could be, I don't know, fluid's the wrong word, but if they could give us a model so that our employees don't fall behind, because it seems like we set them at what we think is the 75th and 95th right now, and then all of a sudden they're immediately behind and we don't do anything for 2 years. And so if there was a model that they could give us that, I mean, I'm talking because I'm not an HR professional, but
I think
there's a
that's-
model that they
that's a
could
good
give
point.
us that we could evaluate every year and then do a compensation study every other year, or if there's a way that the compensation consultant would recommend us evaluating that so that our employees don't fall behind, because I really feel like that's been a problem with doing it every 2 years.
I think that was gonna be my comment also, is that, you know, we set a philosophy, and then even on the when we decided to move to the 95th, majority of the rationale for that was because we would like to have it be the 75th, but we are continually seeing that it wasn't. So let's move it to the 95th, and then hopefully we can get at least above the 75th, so you know, the motivation was the 75th percentile philosophy doesn't seem to be achieved. So I guess the question is if, from the consultant, what would they recommend for us to ensure we're meeting the philosophy percentage that we've set forth?
Right, yep, that's
So
done.
is it frequency of evaluations or you know, compensation studies? Is it something else?
But how do we not fall behind?
That we can add that to
Okay.
it. So, you know, the board's been talking about that there are ways to do that. So you want the consultant to
Well, I just think
present ways to do that.
the consultant asked, I mean, when we've done this, they've given us the data to evaluate what philosophy we'd like to have. But I don't think we've ever been told, here are the steps you need to take in order to make sure you're hitting that philosophy. And I think I'd like to whether that comes from, you know, staff.
There are only there are a number of ways that you can model it, but I mean.
And maybe that's not appropriate for the consultant to.
I think it is. I mean, I think staff has an opinion. You either, and we've heard that this organization is not a comparator of ours. they, for specific positions, they look at their comparator every month because they want to be the leader. So, and because each of our comparators right now are in a different fiscal year, which means that they are looking and updating their compensation study at a timeline that's different from ours. So, and this is something I've said, do we do it quarterly? Do we do it every 6 months?
Right.
Do we do it yearly? So those are, we could add that into the RFP,
And,
saying
yeah,
we want a recommendation from the consultant on how the city stays current at its philosophy,
Perfect.
right?
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I'm finished. Do you have other things, Alderman Gould, that you?
That's why I chimed in on,
Okay, good.
because those were mine.
Okay. Alderman Harder, do you have? Alderman Plufka, do you have anything you'd like to? You have paper, so I see you're going to talk.
David Plufka, 3 Middlesex Drive, Brentwood. You guys have covered a couple of, or at least one of the 3 things that I think are the most important. Let me talk about one that I didn't even include, but it came up during discussion. I think at the earliest stages, and I mean at the time when we have finalists, they should be presenting to this committee. That should not be a staff-only meeting. At the earliest stages, that should not be a staff-only meeting, in my opinion. I would like the committee to consider whatever it takes to make that happen. I don't think we need additional meetings. I don't think we need to let them charge for additional time. I think we can take one of the however many meetings are already being contemplated and make them a meeting that involves elected officials at the earliest stages. I think we should also include, ask them to include an analysis of our past 3 years' experience related to comparator cities. I don't think just the current situation is going to be enough to get at some of the issues I think we have. One of those issues is, how did we get into this position, and have we serially been in this position as it compares to those cities? The second is, I have a problem with the formula that we have used to try to achieve our philosophy. I would like the RFP to include some information on a discussion of the formula as it determines our percentile expressed in the philosophy, specifically with thought to the use of standard deviation and whether that's even appropriate given how small our comparator group is. City administrator said there's 14 comparator cities. There's actually only 8 as it pertains to fire departments, because 7 of the comparator cities, 6 of the comparator cities are members of districts and aren't being compared, and that was expressed in the last compensation plan. So the group is very, very small. The other problem I have with it is when we first decided who were going to be our comparator cities, we used demographic things. We used population. We used age of the community. We used the size of the community. I think it would be more appropriate, and I think we should include this in trying to analyze who our comparators are, to talk about business concentration within those cities, because that puts a strain on not just police and fire, but on public works and our Parks and Rec department. Also, if you look at just the amount of money that flows through these communities. I mean, in terms of our population, we're a very small community. In terms of our geographical size, we're a very small community. In terms of our budget, we're one of the larger communities. I mean, and that draws with it demands on our staff. And I think that it's only fair that the comparator cities should truly be comparable from that standpoint. Last but not least, I think we should find an analysis to get to Alderman Gould's point that I thought he made very well, which is, how do we find ourselves annually at percentages that are below our stated philosophies? What we can do to avoid this happening again, whether it's more frequent analysis, whether it is the implementation of a formula that is far easier to implement. It doesn't require the help of an expert every single year or every 2 years. Those are the things I'd ask the committee to consider. And again, thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing on this topic especially. Thank you.
Bola, did you get things from that you can, okay. So is that enough direction from the board to work on the?
The one question I have is regarding establishing comparator. Do you want to wait and have the consultant selected and then the committee and the consultant can have that discussion.
Probably,
Okay,
personally, I think that makes sense. I don't know about the, yeah.
okay.
Just as long as in the RFP, it outlines that they will be required to consult on comparator city evaluation,
That's in here.
who the comparator cities are, you know.
I can read what we have in here. The selection of benchmark organizations may be controversial. There will be concerns on comparability, especially when it comes to budget size, population, the level of service from the organization. It is important that the elected officials accept the list of benchmark organizations, so we envision a committee comprised of some of them along with the city administrator and the HR manager. I can take that out. Who will work with a consultant to identify the benchmarks. It is likely these meetings will need to take place in the evening, so there's an expectation of that already.
Okay,
Great.
all right.
Good. Anything else on this topic? Or
Yeah, do you need any action?
do you need
on
action from
any-
us, or just?
No.
Good?
Just wanted feedback, and, you know, we sent this to the entire board
Right.
so that it would be more than just the Ways and Means Committee members giving the city feedback, because as it is, we might be prepared to release this by next week.
Great. Well, thank you for moving it so quickly. So we've already done the consent agenda. There is no old business, so let's move on to new business and the police department gym equipment. Chief Spees?
Good afternoon. We are requesting an asset forfeiture spend for the police department's gym. We're anticipating that the cost is going to be around $24,000 for upgrading several pieces of equipment in the gym. Currently, the asset forfeiture account for the police department, we just received a large check a couple weeks ago. We're at $308,000. So we have plenty of money for this to come out of that account.
So just the memo says 16, is it, is it?
Yeah,
some-
we have a updated list, which I'd be happy to share with you, but the difference in the two is the Stairmaster that we currently have is the lowest level model that this company sells, and it got serviced a month ago, and it needs service now. It's several years old, so as we kick this around while we're doing this, we would like to replace it as well.
Any questions?
Motion to approve the asset forfeiture fund for the purpose of gym equipment using the asset forfeiture account.
Second it.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Acclamation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is EMS write-offs. And you're on the way up, Chief.
Good evening. On this particular item, this is our quarterly write-off report for third quarter for fiscal year '23. I do draw your attention to the second line under the write-offs listed as TF admin error. I have not seen this listed before, so I contacted EMS MC asking clarification. They could not provide the detail to it other than when this line is presented, they have had internal errors on data entry, and this is how they pull those records out, so we are not charged fees for collection services. So they still have not mined down to these particular 4 transactions and what the errors have been, but it is internal on their side. I wanted to share that. And the write-offs for the quarter is $36,520.92.
This and send it to the board, or is this just for, okay. So, any questions? So I'll entertain a motion to approve the third quarter write-offs of $36,520.92.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. On up. Next is the EMS MC Services RFP.
Yes, I'm excited to present this. This has been a successful venture to date. We did a RFP for EMS billing services in the month of October. We did receive 3 vendors providing 4 different bids. One EMS MC provided 2 options for us. We're bringing forth tonight a recommendation to go with EMSMC for a new 3-year agreement at a collection rate of 5.4% of net collections. That is a reduction from our current rate. However, we are pulling out the cost of our software to fill out our patient report data, and we are making that a fixed cost for Brentwood. That way, we're not paying a percentage on that cost. And this, just this week, I forwarded an amendment to Mr. O'Keefe for review. EMSMC has already paid for 2024 for the use of that software. They buy in bulk, so they buy from people all across the country. Their rate is 13% less than what we can purchase it for. So they're going to just do a pass-through charge on that. So we will still pay them for the use of that software, but they're charging us 5.4% moving forward. If that surmises what we accomplished what we were looking for with that. And we continue our relationship with PCG, the consultant for the GEMT program, which we've had tremendous success.
Questions from the committee? We'll entertain a motion to approve the agreement with EMSMC for billing and collection services.
Forward on to the board.
Forward onto the board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Seems the ayes have it. Last is the ARPA grant. So you have lots of things for us today.
It is last topic, but again, very exciting topic to bring forward. So we knew Missouri ARPA grants were going to open up at some point this year. We just didn't know the details. It wasn't specific in the governor's budget. So they opened the grants. We have been educating ourselves on the process for fiscal year 24. Major changes have occurred, with the biggest change being there is no maximum match amount. In fiscal year 23, there was a $20,000 cap on the match, so you could do a $40,000 project. That's all that they would authorize. There's no max. And they have 3 priorities listed for their projects. The priority that we are seeking for the fire training facility, if you can show regional and state impact, which we can because we do state testing and the regional training component, it receives priority and preferential points in the scoring process of the grant. We contacted the state, referenced our project, and their advice was to submit one grant application. Not each individual city apply for it, but one city make the grant application. So with staff meeting internally with the departments and cities, the city of Clayton has offered to make that application because they house the financials for our training group already. So let's push it through them. We are confident we are going to be successful here. And the 50-50 match, as easy math, that would be $250,000 state funds to help with that project. So we are very hopeful. We are under a time crunch. Applications are due by January 5th, and our training chief has been working on that currently.
Any questions?
I'm sorry. When should you hear about the grant?
Awards will begin, notifications of award will begin in February, so we should know fairly soon.
I just have a question as it relates to, you're saying there's multiple items that we would be requesting grants for, some of which looks like it would just be for the city of Brentwood, not for the training facility, but if it's in one grant request, how does that, so if the replacement of radio equipment is just for Brentwood,
Correct. And so,
how does that kind of reconcile within the
absolutely.
request?
So my apologies for not clarifying that prior. That would be police and fire Brentwood applying for the radio grants which is a third priority.
Okay.
We would do that separate
Okay.
from the fire training facility, with the hopes of, then that would free up funds that have already been assigned for those projects out of fund balance.
Right.
That could go to pay for the remaining portion of the fire training facility.
Okay, okay. That's
Have
what I
until-
was unclear of.
The funds, if awarded, they have until 2026 to be spent. So this truly gives us time to accomplish the planning and construction of the fire training facility and the radio replacement project, because that currently is slated for 2025.
Right. And is there costs that are needed to be incurred in order to apply for the grant? Meaning, do we need to have preliminary designs or anything like that of it? Or is it strictly a write-up of what we are applying for?
So that groundwork has already been completed by staff. We already have specified bids on the radio equipment from Motorola. And as far as the fire training facility, those are concepts that we are providing in that. And our training chief has met with Navigate Building Solutions to verify some of our data. And so that is going into our application.
So we don't need another outside consultant to draft those concepts?
Not at this point,
Okay.
not in the
All right.
application.
Good.
Correct.
So no money is needed to get to the application, and then if we get awarded, we have time to then have a discussion about what it's being actually used to build.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So the money has to be spent by 2026,
Correct.
which means the city's match has to come by
Correct.
the city's match, we have to come up with that, and it's currently not in the capital budget, even though, it's sort of in the back of everyone's head that this has to be done. So the city gets this will be accelerated, and we've got to find money somewhere in the
Correct.
capital budget. Like,
Correct.
if we get this and not the radios, then we're,
For sure. So absolutely, that was a question that came up at public safety. What's the downside? Well, the downside is we're awarded one, perhaps not the other. Perhaps we're awarded the fire training facility, but not the radios. Or vice versa. How does that work? I think we continue to cross that bridge when we get there, but I think we've presented the best case scenario right now to go after these funds.
okay. Questions? If not, then
Approve the participation in the SFY 24 ARPA grant program and forward onto the board.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. On up. That takes us to citizen comment. I don't see anyone in the room unless Alderman Plufka wants to speak again. Anyone online, Kelly? No? Okay. Well, seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Not the Brandon here.